Welcome to Stories Beyond Borders, the podcast where culture, identity, and personal journeys come together. I'm your host, Urmi, and in each episode we sit down with voices from around the world to talk about what it means to belong, to move, to grow, and to find home. Whether you're a third culture kid, an expat, or someone redefining identity on your terms, these are your stories too. Today I'm joined by Ashika Mehta Ombe, an Indian American woman who was raised across the UK, the Middle East, and is now living in Barcelona. As a lifelong third culture kid and mother of three, she has navigated identity, culture expectations, career burnout, and the quiet transformations of midlife. Through her platform, Tiny Becoming, she helps women, especially working mothers, rebuild themselves through small, compassionate steps using journaling and gentle reflection. Her mission is to support women in rediscovering who they are beyond roles, obligations, and cultural limitations. Welcome, Ashika. How are you doing?
Thank you, Urmi. It's nice to finally meet you.
Yes, I'm so happy we're finally doing this, and I'm very intrigued to listen to your story. And I usually ask this one standard question to all of my guests. What is your story?
It's such a complicated question. I get asked that also when I first meet people. They're like, "Oh, so where are you from?" And that has always been like a really complicated thing for me to answer. So I'm of South Asian descent. I'm Indian, but I never lived in India. So I was born in the United Kingdom, lived in the Middle East for several years of my life before we moved to the United States. I was about 10 when we moved to the United States, and I've grown up there, spent all my adolescence and much of my adulthood in the United States. After I got married, had kids, after COVID, I was just kind of like, I don't know, feeling like life is so short and unexpected. And I was like, I kind of want to explore more of the world with my kids. And I feel like to some extent that desire to constantly move and explore new cultures was just ingrained in me since I was a little kid. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take my kids on that same sort of journey. So we actually moved to San Diego, and even though that's United States, it's a very different culture from the East Coast. Like West Coast is a different world. It's a different style of living. So we really enjoyed our lives in San Diego for about 3 years before we decided to go across the ocean and move to Barcelona. So we currently live in Barcelona. I have 3 kids, 11, 10, and 8. So it's just been a lot of, I think just a lot of moving and experiencing culture is just a part of who I am.
It's, first of all, it's a beautiful story, and it's a story that I can relate to because a little bit like you, I'm also of South Asian heritage. I was born and raised in Italy, and I lived in different parts of the world, and both of my parents are from Bangladesh. And when I was a kid, my parents used to move around a lot for various reasons. And I did find it quite a struggle when I moved to Canada in terms of my cultural identity. So I can very much relate to your story. And you said you never lived in India. Have you ever visited India?
Yeah, we used to visit India a lot. So when we lived in Bahrain, my dad's company had like a really great perk. So they used to pay for my dad's vacations every year. So obviously my parents were like, well, we need to make sure that we maintain the Indianness of our children. So we would go to India every summer. And I have to say now at 40, if I look back at my life and I think about the fondest memories of my life, it is when I was a kid in India. And I don't know if that's just like something that's deeply ingrained in people, that you just connect much deeper to like your ethnicity, even if you weren't raised in it, or it was just because I used to get showered and pampered with so much love and food and like just family. So it was just so nice. When we lived in the United States, we didn't really know anyone. I grew up there in like the 90s. This was, before technology, before you could FaceTime people and all of that. So we kind of led this like super isolated life. It was just me, my mom, my sister, and my dad. So it was just the four of us. And for my mom, being a homemaker, she never worked, but her whole life was, okay, I have to maintain my house. I have to maintain my children. And I think part of that for her was like, I have to maintain culture. I have to make sure my kids are carrying forward like Indian traditions and understanding what Indian food is and all of that. So even though I never lived in India, to this day, I feel more Indian than any other sort of identity that I have. Like my passport is American. I sound American, but I think I connect most deeply with being Indian.
Mm-hmm. I see. And it's very interesting that you are mentioning all of these things because like us two, we're like a family of four. So it was me, my father, my mom, and my younger sister. And even like a little bit like your mother, my mom was also like, she also was a housewife. So all she did was really taking care of us. And I did go to Bangladesh a couple of times. I've never lived there, but let me tell you this, my parents are very traditional. So they brought Bangladesh back to Italy. So it was very, very Bengali at home, but I brought that Italian side in me in there, especially because I went to a completely Italian school. All of my friends were Italian. So I brought that Italian side at home. Which brings me to my next question for you, which is, what was it in your house, and in where did you go to school? Because I'm assuming since you moved so many times, you probably went to so many different schools.
I did. And so when I lived in the Middle East, my parents sent us to a British embassy school because they wanted to make sure they maintain the ability to speak English fluently. Like they were like, we can't lose that. And that was fine. I was also really young, so I don't really remember a lot of it. When we moved to the United States, I went to, a local public school, all English, American children. And that was probably the most difficult for me because at home, I was Indian. Once I stepped out my door, I was American. And as you probably can relate, there's a lot of things about South Asian cultures that just don't mesh with American cultures when it comes to having boyfriends or staying out without permission or just like sexuality and all of those things. There's just no meeting ground between some of those things. So for me as a kid, I would always go and I would see all my friends like hanging out together, and they would just have boys and girls over, and they would just be like, socializing. Whereas for me, it was very much like my parents were like, no, you don't want to watch all those terrible American movies. Let's sit down. We'll watch a Bollywood movie together. So it was like, I think for them, it was like, they tried so hard to maintain India within our home and within me. And like everyone's parents, like they all do the best they can with what they know and what they have, right? At the end of the day, they're trying to keep you safe and they're trying to keep you, they're trying to preserve you as much as possible. But it was difficult for me because what they were trying to preserve was not compatible with the environment that I was in. And then I felt like I was walking like this tightrope all the time. Like I was like, okay, if I lean too far into being Indian, I don't know if I want that. If I lean too far into being American, my parents might not like that. So it was like my whole childhood, much of my adolescence was like, I can't I just blend it both and make both sides happy.
So I think we were meant to meet, honestly, because I also can relate a lot with your story because it was the same thing for me as well.
Yeah.
In the sense that like my parents were always super careful whenever I was going out. First of all, I was not even allowed to go out because there was this fear that I was going to become too Italian. And
Yes.
and I remember like every time I went to a friend's house, they were like, oh, make sure there are no boys in this place.
Yes.
We don't do the same thing as these people, which was always very surprising to me because I'm thinking, okay, but why move to why would you move to Italy if you don't want, your kids to integrate with the culture where they're born? So that was quite interesting. But I remember also like, like when I went to my friend's house, I always had to like explain a little bit about the situation at home, because even for them it was difficult. Like you said, like, the American culture and the South Asian culture are not the same. And it was the same thing for the Italian culture and the Bengali culture. You always had to like explain it to other people, why you couldn't like go to a movies, or why you couldn't hang out after school, why you couldn't do a sleepover. So it was like we share a very similar story. And my question is, I know you said like you try to like blend a little bit of both, but did you ever feel like you had to like choose either one, or was there a point in life where you're like, oh, I don't want to be associated with that on American culture or this South Asian culture or this South Asian culture? Yeah.
I think the point when I had the biggest issues with the South Asian culture was when I was going to get married. So my husband is Nigerian. He is not Indian. And that was a massive deal. I'm the first in my entire family to date that has married out of the race, like completely out of the race. And at that point, I just could not understand why, because like, let me step back a bit. So as a mom, my main goal is that my children are happy, right? If you're happy with what you're doing and you're feeling like, yes, this is what I want to do, fine. I'm going to trust that you've done the due diligence to know that this is the right choice for you. My parents could not acknowledge that I was smart enough to choose this man as my husband. And it was only mainly because he was an Indian. And I think that was the one point in my life where I was like, God, if I could just be all those white girls that I grew up with, that they could do whatever they wanted and it was fine. And also at that point, I think all the restrictions that I felt in my life growing up, at that point, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm so fed up of being in the middle, in this like weird in-between space all the time. And I think that was like the first break in my life where I was like, okay, I'm done following people's rules and I'm done trying to please. But I don't think it fully has like manifested itself until I got to like my mid 30s till now. Now, when I got to 40, I was like, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, I don't have to pick or choose. I don't have to pick to be Indian. I don't have to pick to be American. I don't have to pick to be Spanish. I can take little bits of everything and make like my own potluck culture. And that's okay, right? So, and like my kids are going through the same experience. When people ask them like, oh, who are you? Or where are you from? They're like, well, my mom is Indian and my dad is Nigerian, but we were born in America. Now we live in Spain. I'm like, you don't have to give people an explanation, because I felt that way. I always felt like I have to like, I don't know, like give people like a summary of who I am for them to like me or just understand me. But now I just introduce myself as Ashika. I'm Ashika and I live in Barcelona. If people want to know more, I'm happy to explain, but I don't feel like that burden anymore to need to define why my skin color looks this way, why I sound this way. I feel like I don't need to do that anymore. I do wish I got to this point sooner in my life. Because I probably would have lived and made decisions more for me rather than everything around me.
Okay, I love everything you said. I love the when you said, oh, like I'm a potluck, like I'm just gonna add everything. I'm a potluck. I love this. I've never heard this, but I think it's so true. Like I think, I mean, it does define you, I would say, when you said that word potluck, especially because of the different cultural background that you have. And I relate a lot to the story that you have said. And I also think it's because I mean, you said you're closer to your 40s, or maybe you are in your 40s, and I am in my 30s. So it's, we're not so far away in that sense, in terms of the years when we were born and when we grew up. Because I can see why the issue of marrying a non-Indian was such a big deal with your parents. I'm pretty sure they were, looking forward for you to marry someone from a certain region, from a certain village. Like, those things are so important, especially for South Asian parents. Reputation is everything. How much money they make, where they live, what their last name is. Like, it's crazy, honestly. But I do want to applaud you for really putting yourself first and thinking about yourself first, because I think it takes a lot of courage when you try to break the cycle and marry someone outside of the culture or someone who's different from you. Because I know that for South Asian families it's a big deal. But they don't understand also how hard it is for us as well, that we don't want to be limited in our choices or in the options that we're given, because it makes this difficult. And we live also in a world that is so globalized. Like, you know, you're gonna meet so many people from different cultures, from different ethnicity. Why is it such a big deal that this person has to be, you know, Indian? And I always say, you know, a person can be Indian but can be like a bad person, but the same applies to any type of, you know, person. Like, you have to look at the person as a human being, not as the religion. You don't have to look at the culture. Like, I don't know why those things are so important. So I get it. I totally get it, how you're feeling. And I also get the other part about you explaining yourself. Like, why do we have to explain ourselves every time we meet someone? Let me tell you this, I still do. I still have to explain myself. I do say I'm Urmi, but people start wondering a little bit. And sometimes people are just labeling you based on what they think is the right thing, right? They look at you and they'll say, oh, you're probably, you know, Indian. But I think it's up to us to decide our identity, and it's not for someone else to decide. For us. And I do want to ask you, because you have moved so many places and now you're living in Barcelona, what brought you to Barcelona and how has it been living there? Because Barcelona is nice. It's so nice. Barcelona, I love that place.
It's amazing. I think of all the places that I've lived, I absolutely love Barcelona. And I think for the first time in my life, I can say I found a place that I can live for a long time. I think the biggest thing that I love about Barcelona is it's that Mediterranean culture. Again, it's a new culture, right? For me, it's a completely new culture. There's super slow pace of life. They really enjoy family. They savor life here. Whereas in America, it's not about savoring life. It's about work, 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 make more money, buy a bigger house, get a nicer car. It's that very, very capitalistic society, right? Like where you need to have more stuff, you need to do more things. So when I lived in the US and also being South Asian, it's like a terrible combination, right? Because then you just never feel good enough. You always feel like you're just not enough. After moving here and seeing how people live here, I was like, this is the pace of life that's sustainable. Because as human beings, we cannot keep going. Like it's not supposed to be the human experience. And I think until I moved here, I didn't realize that. And moving here also just really made me slow down. And it really made me think about, okay, what is it? Who am I really? That stupid question that everyone asks themselves, like, oh, who am I? But for me, it was much deeper because I was like, okay, underneath all of these cultures and layers of being a woman, being a mother, being an employee, being Indian and American, what is it that I am underneath all of these things? And there was like this reel I just saw on Instagram this morning where there was a person that was talking about, it was like a podcast, and the lady that was speaking was saying, if you strip all of those markers away and you don't have to explain to someone who you are, what do you do for a living, where do you come from, what are your hobbies, and you take all of that away. If somebody asked you, hey, Urmi, tell me something about you, like, what would you actually say outside of all of those things? And I was sitting there and thinking, I was like, I really don't know. Like, I don't know outside of my profession and being a mom and having 3 kids, like who is Ashika, right? Like, what am I? So moving here has really given me that ability to stop and redefine. Because for me, I just turned 40 on October 13th. So for me, it's almost like I feel like, okay, well, the first half of the show is over. And I'm now in like the second half. So the second half, I feel like I really, truly want to live the rest of my life on my terms. I don't want to live it anymore on my husband's terms or my kids' terms or my parents or anybody. And saying that, I also, it's very empowering, but I want people, especially women, to be able to say, I can do things in parallel. I can be a mom and look out for myself, because I feel like those two things never go hand in hand. You always feel like, no, I should put my kids first, or I should put my husband first, I should put my job first. But I think this is the first time in my life where I'm like, no, I'm going to put me first, and that doesn't make me a bad person. And that, I think, has been probably the most amazing part about living in Barcelona, aside from all the beaches and the great food and the great wine.
Yeah, I love Barcelona, and I loved everything that you have just shared. I know it takes a lot of courage, and you have to get outside of that comfort zone. And honestly, you said you turned 40, but I thought, like, if you did not tell me that you were in your 40s, I thought you were like my age, like still in your 30s. Like, you look pretty young. And I'm so happy that you said, like, I'm putting myself first. I'm doing things on my own terms, because being South Asian, it's hard to say that. It's very, very hard, because the guilt starts climbing, and we're so used to people pleasing. But I'm so happy that you came to that conclusion, and that you're rocking it. Like, girl, like, I'm very, very happy for you. Very happy.
I'm trying. I don't think that there is like a perfect way to do it, but I think that you have to start, right? Like, it's small things. Like, so I normally never used to put makeup on my face, because I grew up with a mom that was like, why do you need to wear makeup? Like, you're fine. You should just go with your natural beauty. My mom was very much about, you take care of everyone else, and sacrifice is like how you, like, sacrifice is important. It's what you're supposed to do. And now, and especially because I have a daughter, I'm like, no, sacrifice is not how I'm meant to live. Why should I sacrifice my entire mind, body, and soul to show somebody that I love them? It doesn't go together. But for most of my life, that's how I saw love, was that you must sacrifice. And this is our culture, right? This is South Asian culture. It's about sacrifice and being like that martyr, where you're going to put everything on the line for everyone around you. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that life anymore. It's just not fair to do that to yourself. You can still love and care for everyone around you extremely deeply and still put yourself first. It's possible.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think it comes from a place of self-love. And that's it. Like, I also used to think like you. And it's only taking, like, I'm only doing that work now, where I'm like, why do I have to, people please everyone? Why do I have to say yes to everything? Why is it all about sacrificing myself for everyone? And it's not coming from a place of like selfishness, it's just, we are just loving ourselves first before we can start loving other people. And that's the problem about the South Asian communities, that they teach you that. They teach you that from a young age, and they put all the weight on the daughters, on the girls, because if it's a boy, like, who cares? There's so much favoritism over there. And we can spend hours talking about this, and I am with you on that. And I'm really, like, glad that you are doing that work, and that you're focusing on yourself, and that you are also teaching differently to your daughter. I think it's important to start young, definitely. So I'm very,
Yeah,
very,
for sure. And I think the one saying that stuck with me the most, and I always play it back in my head, and something that you could use, another South Asian women, is like, you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? Like, how am I going to pour any love into my children if my own cup is empty? Like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
I can only pour love into other people if my cup is full. And even when I do pour love into other people and my cup starts to become empty, I have to refill it. And that requires me to take time for myself. And I just wish that this would be something that would change across all of South Asia, because I think there's still millions of women that are still suffering this martyr syndrome, and it's going to take generations to change. We live in very patriarchal societies. And I feel for my fellow South Asian women.
Yeah. Yeah, I am with you. I feel the same, but I think I also think, like you said, like, it's gonna take generations. But I think me and you were already doing some changes, and we're already doing something for the greater good now, definitely. So
Yeah,
I know
agree.
you shared a lot of, like, wisdom and great stuff. But I do have one last question. Like, if you could, share one message, and it could be whatever you just said, what would it be?
I think the one message that I feel like is really important that I'm still trying to teach myself is that to reinvent yourself or realign yourself or find yourself or whatever people call it, you don't need to start completely fresh. You just need to start where you are and start exactly where you are. Like, don't wait until like, oh, once I get here, then I'll do that. Once I finish this, then I'll do that. Just start, like, in its small things. Like for me, I spent the last month trying to get up in the mornings and do my hair and do my makeup. And it's not from a place of vanity. It's more from a place of, I'm going to take a few minutes to make myself feel good about myself. And something as simple as that. And if you want to do, like, if you want to have a career change, or you feel like you want to lose weight, or whatever it is, don't start setting schedules, because it can feel so overwhelming when you're already in a place of self-doubt. So just start small. It doesn't have to be these like massive routines, because when people spend a lot of time on social media, and then you start to see all these people that are, they're doing it and they're posting these videos and they're like, oh, I just ran 10 miles. And it's like, don't set those ridiculous goals where you're setting yourself up for failure. So for me as a mother, I would like to lose a little weight on my stomach just so I can feel more comfortable. But I'm not setting any sort of ridiculous routine that I know I can't keep, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week and lift weights and all. No, I'm not going to do any of that. I know I'm not going to do that. So instead, what I say is I'm going to walk around my block twice, at least once or twice a week. I'm going to start there. And it's just about creating teeny tiny habits. Like, just do one small thing and then let that snowball into something bigger. Like, don't wait, because we all think like, oh, I'm 40, I have 40 more years. I'm 20, I have 60 more years. We really don't know what amount of time we have on this planet. It's not a guarantee. And we see all kinds of stories all the time. So don't wait for tomorrow. Literally start now, and just start small. Like, 2 simple things. Don't wait, and just start small, and just get it off your plate. Just do it. Prove to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, I love the message. I really love the message. And I think this also comes from the fact that you're living in Spain, which is also like a bit like laid back and you can slow down. So I can definitely see how that has been influencing your life and how you're doing things. No, it's a beautiful message, and I love that. And this is really the end of our interview. But before I let you go, tell us how people can connect with you.
Yeah, so people can connect with me on Instagram at Tiny Becoming. I am trying to tiny become a different person myself constantly. But yeah, you can find me at Tiny Becoming. I'm working on putting together like some prompts and helping people use AI to navigate just self-development and self-realizations.
Wonderful. Well, Ashika, thank you so much for coming today. It was such an honor having you here with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Urmi. It was so nice to chat with you too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Stories Beyond Borders. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a story. Until next time, keep crossing borders and telling your story.